what first inspired your love of music?
That's a great question. I think my grandpa was my first like exposure to like contemporary like rock music. I'd heard like the radio, but yeah, he got me on some like old school rock and roll stuff. It was awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. You just released your brand new project, Ultrapure. Can you tell me a little bit about the creative process for that album in particular?
Sure. Yeah, I this record came together really quickly after like a long period of time of not having any like form. I had like no idea what the album was going to be. And then kind of out of nowhere, it just like all assembled. Like I started writing and kind of didn't stop until the album was done, like up until the last minute. So it really just like kind of naturally glued itself together over time.
Yeah. Would you say that there was anything in particular that sort of inspired your writing process? A lot of the songs seem to cover the past, but also anxiety in some specific moments in time.
Yeah, I think the past was a bigger voice, and then as we all know, like you start reflecting on that stuff, and as soon as you start to feel good about it, your mind will find something new to be anxious about or new to convince yourself that you've done the wrong way. So, yeah, that was the more present stuff was definitely as a result of the past things seemingly being taken care of, but not being taken care of.
I totally get that. Yeah. How do you sort of balance the vulnerability in your music in terms of what you want to keep to yourself and what you want to share with an audience?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm very conscious about it when I'm making like when I'm writing or when I'm releasing music. I think it comes more so in the period of time like when we're touring or like how I approach stuff on the internet. But I think I it's just a day-to-day thing. I don't have like a general outline of how much I want to share or don't want to share. Like I think it's just relative. Like sometimes sharing, in the right moment can be a really, really helpful thing for somebody. Like, and so just, but also preserving my own self is can be helpful for people as well. So it's yeah, I think it's a game time decision.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think especially during the writing process, it's important to just let yourself feel what you need to feel and worry about the rest later.
Yeah.
One thing that stuck out to me is that the album opens with a 43-second intro track. What sort of inspired that decision?
Um. So the title track we had recorded it. We'd recorded it twice, like two different versions of it. One of them was like kind of the waltzy thing, and then the other was the version that ended up being the version we went with. But I still really liked the waltz kind of feel to it. So we were like, well, what if we just took a portion of that and like made it sound a little bit different and used it as like a precursor for what was to come later on the record. So yeah, it ended up being more of just a vibe track.
That's
um
awesome.
yeah.
It comes together really nicely when you listen.
Oh, thanks.
Of course, yeah. I know you mentioned that the album came together really quickly, but would you say that in the end you sort of had a cohesive story that came together for the album?
To a degree, yeah. I definitely think there are a couple songs that are like super directly related. And then as things, as we wrote towards the end of the process, some of those felt a little less connected directly, but they all ended up. I think that's an awesome thing about making an album. That's why I like to make full-length albums is like you toss all these songs in a pot, not thinking that they relate, and then they kind of reveal to you how they do.
No, definitely, yeah. Given that this was the longest project you've ever made, what was it like to sort of decide what songs you wanted on the album versus what you didn't want?
Mm.
Kind
Yeah,
of decision process.
that was strange. That's my least favorite part of making an album is choosing which songs have to go on the album in what order. I think it's unfair and I hate it and never want to do it again. Um it was really tough this time. I just tried to like we tried really hard to listen objectively and just like try to put the songs on the record that I thought communicated the simplest, most like, most personal but also most obtainable ideas for anybody who would listen, not just for like any stranger who stumbled onto the album, I wanted there to be something that anyone could engage with. So I think that was the biggest influence. Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah, that definitely seems like it can be a difficult decision, but it came together really well in the end.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. In terms of sonically, what would you say stood out to you most during the production process? I noticed with Ultrapure you feature a voicemail or a voice message at the beginning.
Yeah. Uh, I'm so sorry. My dog just did a crazy thing. Could you repeat that question one more time? Sorry, I just heard I heard insane dog footsteps upstairs. I'm so sorry.
You're totally good, yeah. So sonically, what would you say stood out to you during the production process? I noticed things like voicemails or voice messages were used.
Yes, yeah. I think that's definitely an important sonic element that kind of led to a lot of the more like musical choices we made. Like I love a voicemail in a track. I love a talking segment or like organic sounds coming from anywhere. So I think kind of using those as inspiration and then building more like melodic sounds that made me feel the same way as a voicemail or as like recordings of just like walking up and down the street. Yeah, I wanted all this. I did want it to feel like people were getting to hear what I was hearing every day when we were making the record. So there's a lot of recordings of like the birds outside the studio and like walking down the gravel driveway to get into the studio. Like I just wanted to feel personal.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I think it does give that personal touch to the audience. So it's really cool to hear.
Sweet.
Did you say that there was a favorite track off of the album that you made?
Mm. I think right now Sink Swim is my favorite.
I love that track. We even charted it
Oh,
at the radio station. It's awesome.
what? Thanks. That's awesome.
You're welcome. Yeah. Would you say that on the opposite end, there was a track that was the most difficult to make but felt rewarding in the end?
Mm. Weirdly, I think it's strange because it seems like the most fun, but I really struggled with Chaos Party.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out how to sing it. And so I ended up just kind of being silly and then it felt the best.
I think that's a really good way to approach it. Be silly and let your
Sure.
fans find the song. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask about the music video for that track and how the music videos kind of play into your creative expression.
Yeah, yeah, that's I mean, definitely directly related to that. Like we had some like big ideas and it was supposed to be the like, big single off the record and stuff. And I was like, man, I think I will feel so much better if we make this the most fun video of the batch. And so we kept it super simple, literally just like walked around for a day with my friend and was like, you know, what's like the dumbest thing that we could do? Basically, like what would make teenage us laugh essentially. And so it was definitely for like young us.
It comes across as really fun. Would you say that for your other music videos, you approached it differently? I know that one has animated elements and drawing and felt as well.
Yeah, yeah, that one there's one that we plan on putting out too that's pretty heavily animated as well. And so those yeah, those were like a little bit more self-serious. Like I just wanted to like explore that side of creativity for this record too. So I wanted there to be some like kind of cinematic elements to it. So those were a little bit more like visually ambitious, but they were still like, I'm dressed like a freaking wizard in one of them, so it's like still pretty silly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
Thanks.
Would you say that ultimately there was anything you learned about yourself as an artist creating this record?
Yeah, I think I just was reminded of the power of just not letting other people shape what you're into, like trusting that your own taste may be less accessible at first to people, but knowing that, being myself and hearing people relate to this album has been like insane. Like it just means so much that like these people are seeing the real me right now.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of branching off of that, would you say you've learned anything about the music industry over the course of your time with your career?
Totally. I've learned it's a pretty wicked beast for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally get that. What do you ultimately hope that listeners take away from this record and your music as a whole?
Mm. I just hope people feel inspired to just like trust their instincts and to just like know that they are I believe that like everybody has something interesting and unique about them. Um, and I hope when people listen to this record, they feel like they can just have a little bit of love for that part of themselves that is unique, and the parts of themselves that maybe they're afraid to explore, that they will explore those a little bit.
Well, definitely. I think that's a beautiful thing. Kind of transitioning to talking about touring, you have a series of shows coming up in the UK and the EU.
Yeah.
What are some of the songs that you're most excited to play?
Um, I'm really stoked to play some of the like heavier ones. Like we've been playing Breathe and Spring. And playing Chaos Party has been pretty awesome too. So I'm stoked to just make it feel like a big rock show.
Nice. Yeah. Do you have any crazy tour stories that have stuck with you over time?
Oh my gosh, like more than I can count. The Europe UK stuff is always a mess. Last year we toured during like the record hottest summer ever in the UK. So like
Mm.
every night we literally just slept on top of our, like we never took the blankets off of our bed. So for like 2 weeks straight, we just laid like flat on our backs, just in like a pool of our sweat, being like, why didn't we all go to dental school? This is the dumbest thing we've ever done.
I mean, you got through it, so I give you
We
credit.
did. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. If you could go to any concert, past or present, which would you choose?
Oh man. I got to see Car Seat Headrest in like 2018 when I was like, yeah, gosh, how old was I? I was pretty young. I was like 19 or something. And that show kind of like blew my mind. So I would definitely go to that show again.
I love car seat headrest. Good choice.
Thanks.
Overall, what would you say is your next biggest goal for your career or personally?
Um, I think I just want to continue to make, I want to explore like a new sound for another record, and I think I just want to keep continuing to like make stuff that I'm proud of. That's like my biggest goal for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have one last question, but if you
Sure.
weren't doing music, what do you think you would be doing right now?
I just recently realized, because I talked to a friend of mine who has a kid, and his kid is in this like hippie outdoor school where they're just like learning survival skills and like, just like very humanitarian education for a bunch of little like 5-year-olds too. I think I would totally want to go like be a teacher at a school like that.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I think it'd be fun.
Um, Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I've loved your music for years, so it's really
Oh,
cool
thanks.
to talk with you. You're welcome.
Oh my gosh, so nice to meet you.